Hello, this is a Bechstein Model 8 upright piano, 128 centimetres tall, made in 1919. It just come into stock, just assessing it to see what needs doing to the piano and to appreciate it. My colleagues already looked at the casework and tried to improve it as much as possible without repolishing it. It could be repolished and indeed does turn out very special. It's much redder though if it's repolished. I'll try and put an image of one that we've recently repolished so you can see what it will look like, but quite different. It will bring out more of a grain contrast. You'll see the subtlety in the grain a lot more than you do at the moment. But a lot of people like the faded rosewood, more yellowy kind of wood as it were, or honey coloured if you prefer. And you can see it's not totally integral, but you can see how interesting the veneer is. So if it was fully repolished, it would look very interesting. And the front rail here, he's tied it up. Obviously doing the brasses is no problem at all. Trying to show up all the differences, the defects, if you like, that it has. But reasonably acceptable, I think. You see the shade that the Music Sound's made there, it's folded in. There's the original colour, and that, as you can see, is much more rosewoody. There's the original seller, Kramer or Kramer, London. They also had their name on lots of new pianos. I think they were piano manufacturers too. We'll have a look inside in a minute. There's a number on the side here which seems to have been identified as a serial number. Unusual, because there's normally the serial number is on the frame here, but there is no serial number of the frame. So when it was restored, perhaps it was left off. The piano's got an almost perfect set of ivory keys, as you can see here. Really very special. And if we look at the action, we can see that it has been restored. So the tapes obviously is something that's done. If you want to take off this, then you have to replace the tapes. And there's a new springs here, quite extensively restored. So the hammers, if we look at them, they're new. It's not really been used hardly since it's been done. As you can see, there's no real indentation on the hammers, just played in a bit. You can see the tuning pins are changed. They're very extremely tight and quite small, so I thought perhaps the rest bank had been changed, but I don't think it has. Looking at the back of the piano, you can't see evidence of that, but certainly a very full restoration. And we'll have a listen to the tone of it and then compare it later on with some other pianos. So around this area, the singing tone. Typically Bechstein 8, one of our favourites. And the tenor area. And bass. So, a beautiful tone. Now there is some minor regulation to do, particularly will affect the playing. You can see that damper as I'm pressing the hammers forwards. The right hand one of the two dampers there lifts off much earlier than the left hand one. So that really would, you can feel that in your fingers if you play quietly. So really that we'll try and improve that. And I have actually also done the let off or the set off on a couple of notes here. If you look at the let off, this is middle C here. And if we play B together with it, we'll have a look at the two hammers. And the let off of B is much earlier than C. So C is, you can play more softly. You can hear C comes through stronger than the B. It's not a huge difference, but it's kind of subtle refinements that we like to do, really. Now the let off or set off is adjusted here. This button either go up for letting off later and down for letting off earlier, and it's adjusted by these tend to break if you're not careful, so it's best to come vertically down onto them if possible. In this case I've gone behind the hammer rail there just to get more vertical, and if you turn it one way or the other, so we'll disable it completely by turning it a long way this way, and you'll see what happens when it's not working at all. So if it's not letting off, not working at all, the hammer just hits the string and doesn't come off, and obviously we don't want that. So now it's just letting off but double hitting, so we don't want that either. So perhaps half a turn further down and it's going to be correct. So now it's just about correct, but it's tending to bounce forward. On a Bechstein, it's best to try and get this check a little bit earlier than on most pianos. So on this model of Bechstein, which has an extra spring here, so apart from model 10 and 5, they all have this extra spring. I don't know if you can see it very well, which means it's best to get it checking a bit later, then you can get a better response. So there we are, it's checking a lot later than the one next to it, as you can see, an awful lot later. That's checking a lot earlier, too early really, and the let off on that isn't as good as it could be. So if this one here, we want a lot closer let off, so it'll be much more sensitive. Here the left hand one is louder when I play with the same force, and in fact if I play gently you can hardly get the C to play, whereas the B you can hear. Just also taken the bottom panel off just so you can get an idea of how good the stringing is on this piano. So whoever's restored it, it's done really well. Unfortunately I don't know the name of the restorer, but I have got the name of the previous tuner, so I'm just hoping he might be able to shed a bit more light on it. So looking at the assessment sheet, I mentioned most of the things here. Finely regulating dampers to pedal and keys, and this is the main work we've got to regulate the let-offs as I've set up note 40 and 41. Originally sold by Chroma of London. I'd love to know if you're in the trade whether they actually made pianos, or at least there's lots of Kramer with pianos with Kramer on them, and good piano makers too. So I'm just wondering if perhaps they had their own shop for their own pianos, and also they have Bechsteins. Bechstein had a shop in London too, so not quite sure about all of that, but if you're in the trade, please do let me know. So very well restored piano, and we're very pleased to have got the piano into stock. And the keys were slightly on the heavy side, and the bass we can try and improve that with lubrication, and if necessary we can re-weight. If you have a preference for weight, then please let me know. 52 is fine for middle C, 47 going slightly lighter in the top as it should do, and a bit of voicing to do. We've done that note already. So just going to compare with some other pianos. There's a similar height Yamaha U1G made in 1975. This is a Knight K10 made in 1979. So that's a Model 8 Bechstein upright piano, 128 centimetres tall, made in 1919, and it's been fully restored very well. I mentioned earlier about the possibility of polishing. This is really, I think, quite pleasant to look at already. If it's repolished, it will look more natural rosewood, which is, when you rub the whole thing down, do it naturally, it has a more of a reddish look, and this is more of a yellower look. So obviously that's personal preference. If we did repolish it, then it'll bring out much more grain contrast, and I'll put an image so you can see the kind of finish we expect it to have. Quite different really. Now the touch and the tone, it's just one of the best touches and tones of any upright piano, I believe. Good dynamic range as well. Just a musician's instrument all round, so if you're learning or want to practice, and it's an excellent instrument for that, or if you just want to enjoy playing the piano. Not that you wouldn't enjoy if you're studying, but I think you know what I mean. Thank you very much for listening. If you're interested, please do email us info@robertspianos.com with what you'd like to do.